Today, we're joined by Mel, who is a former VP at a marketing company. She experienced significant sound sensitivity, also called hyperacusis. There was a loud noise triggering event that caused her to be sensitive to normal everyday sounds, and it really changed her life, turned it upside down. Today, she's going to explain how her sound sensitivity is healed. Mel, welcome to the Treble Health podcast. Let's start with a quick introduction. Where are you today with your ears and your symptoms? And where were you when this was at its worst?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Today I'm really good. This happened to me in February of 2023, and we're looking at February of 2025. So it's been a 2-year journey. I blink my eyes because I can't believe it really was 2 years ago. I would say today I'm really at a point where I have full amplitude. I wear hearing aids. So I was already hearing impaired. It runs in my family. But those, extreme hypersensitive sounds that were really loud. And I also had, the tympani sensory muscle that was really triggered as a result. I'm in a good place today, and I have been for a while, so I'm feeling really good.
I love that. And why are you here? Why are you here to speak to others who may be in an earlier position with this, looking for help? What are you hoping to share with them today?
There was so little about what was available. I spent some time just trying to figure out what I had. At first, I just thought my hearing aids were malfunctioning. I was getting this ticking sound, and I thought, "Oh, I must have a problem with one of the hearing aids." And I let it go for a couple of weeks, and then it just got more. It just increased in severity. I was about to retire. I was going through succession planning. It was a lot of stress, a lot of long hours, trying to hand off something, and I think in the end, I really tried to ignore that. So, when you come out of 360 degrees, 200 miles an hour working to like the next day not doing that, it was like my world had become incredibly small and things had just really progressed. So the reason I'm sharing that is I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what this is. There's a lot out there on the internet. It can be incredibly frightening and scary. And I know when I found Treble Health, it was really what helped me find a recovery plan to get back where I am today. So I just want to share some of the things I learned over that process.
Excellent. And what were your symptoms for someone who is still trying to figure out exactly what they have? What did you hear or what did you experience that caused you to go, That's not right. I've got to get this checked out. I need help with this."
Yeah, I thought about that a little bit. I mean, this is what's the strange part. It's just normal sounds. It's water, washing dishes, taking a shower, becoming incredibly loud. It's using forks or ceramic on your, granite counter or whatever you have. It was plastic or paper crumbling and just sounding really, really loud. I also like cooking. Anything sizzling in a frying pan would be like so loud in my head. And then for me, my own voice was a problem. I could hear it in my head. And so it was the amplitude, and then it was the tympani, muscle just uncontrollably going off as a result. So for me, it became removing the hearing aid, plugging that ear, trying to just stop the sound.
Those are very common sounds that are what we call hyperacusis. So those are normal everyday sounds, but they're often high pitch or high frequency in nature. And at a normal decibel, a normal volume level, someone who has hyperacusis will feel, oh, I can't stand that. Oh, could you turn that down? Oh, I need to cover my ears. I need to move away from that sound. Is that consistent with what you had?
Yeah, it's even a little bit it's more debilitating almost than that. It stops you. You're taking a shower. How do you take a shower if water's falling on the your shower, and it's just like you can't handle that. If you're trying to, do dishes, if you're trying to cook, if you're walking into a grocery store, if you're pushing a cart, you're walking on the road and cars go by and you hear the studs in the wheels. It it's like you're onslaughted with so much aggression of sound that you kind of back away from everything. And then for me, I was trying to avoid that sound from ticking off that muscle as well, which would then just be, it would go on till I could calm it down.
What did that ticking sound like? Did it sound like ticking, or was there other types of sounds it also presented as?
Yeah, I had ticking, sometimes, I guess it just could be just so amplified. If you're crinkling paper or plastic, it would just like my ear couldn't process it. It would be so loud. It wouldn't know how to deal with that. And, you just recoil. What happens is you recoil, you're trying to figure out where that's coming from. Even in the autumn, leaves I'd be walking on the road and leaves would be rolling down the road, and I could hear those leaves. Like, they were really far away. So, it's like my ears weren't processing things correctly, and you're just constantly being hit at. So, ticking, hissing, sizzling, it's just like a reaction in your head.
Hmm. You're describing two different conditions that often happen together, but not always. One is hyperacusis, sound sensitivity. That's, the water running, dishes clanking, driving on the highway, flushing the toilet, taking a shower, crinkling plastic or paper. Those sounds are way too loud, right? That's called hyperacusis. And then separately, the clicking or the beeping, what is sometimes referred to as Morse code tinnitus or um, typewriter tinnitus, can
Mm.
actually be what's known as tensor tympani syndrome, which is a temporary condition that often coincides with tinnitus or sometimes with hyperacusis. And it's this little muscle that connects behind the eardrum. And just like someone has a sort of restless leg where it just kind of goes uncontrollably, the muscle behind the eardrum can do the same thing. And because the eardrum is part of our hearing, if you bang a drum or move it, it's going to make a sound. So that's where that sound comes from. I thought that would be very important to share with everyone listening that these are two distinct conditions, and if someone has either of them, it's worth getting that checked out and talking to a specialist. So now you've stated the problem, you've stated how it affect your life, how it affected your life. How many months or weeks did you go struggling with this before you found proper help?
Yeah, and just and so interesting that you called it Morse code. I used to tell Dr. Sarah, of Treble Health, "Oh, Morse code, my little Morse code friend is back," or we had an incident with my Morse code friend, and I didn't realize that actually, it had a name to it.
Yeah.
So it took me a couple of months. What happened here is I'm Canadian, so I looked around in Canada locally here to find audiologists that had any hyperacusis experience, but they were really technical, like technicians. They could tell me that maybe it's your tensor tympani muscle, but I didn't know enough about that at the time. And they also had helped me understand that, okay, you've got something called hyperacusis, but that's all I can do for you. And I'm like, "Okay, well, what about a recovery plan? Like, where do we go from here?" Well, we don't really do that. So it did take me a little while. When I found Treble Health, it was reaching out to yourself and just really asking during one of the podcasts that you had a live session that I joined. Would you consider taking me on as a patient, at least from the recovery side? And that's really how we got started.
Yeah. What exactly did you do with your doctor at Treble Health? So that's obviously how we got connected. You worked with our team for the treatment of hyperacusis. We did that remotely via telehealth. How exactly did that happen? And was it the hearing aids? Was it something else that you did in the one-on-one sessions? What exactly did you do to get better?
Yeah, I had a couple of things that I jotted down that I thought were really important. I think, there were 2 doctors that I worked with, Dr. Sarah Matthews and Dr. Diana, Vertere, and I don't know if I say her last name correct or not, but, uh, what we did is I think the first and most important thing was just understanding the cycle, right? Like, the path to recovery, what those stages were. For me, I think being empowered to know what I had and then how we were going to get to that recovery endpoint. I think that was the first thing. The second thing was, I needed some kind of relief. So I had removed any amplitude in one hearing aid, and what we worked on was I had my audiologist add pink noise to my Signia hearing aids, and that's how we were able to start my way back. Just using that to really help um, me focus on something other than those sounds. I don't think I realized how much the tensor tympani syndrome was affecting the hyperacusis as well. I think that took me a little while to figure that out, and maybe what to do around that. Um, but we were always walking the line of not completely coiling back out of society, but how do you bring back up the amplitude slowly with the help of the pink noise in my hearing aid and using you know like desensitizing myself to these different sounds and, working through, I guess, a little bit of cognitive behavior therapy and just week to week, really coming up with what worked that week, what didn't work that week, and our plans for moving forward. Um, One of the things I'd say that also was really important was understanding that this wasn't going to be a linear recovery. And that was really good. Like Dr. Sarah, would reiterate, it's like tunneling through a mountain. She would use that analogy a lot. It was quite good for me. You're going to hit some roadblocks and you're going to stop. You might even take a little step back or a partial step, and then you need to kind of move through that and keep going, and then maybe your recovery is gonna pick up again a little faster. So, I'm a bit of an A-type personality. I wanna be 100% in, let's just get this done, and that was, like, learning patience and just recognizing that this was going to be testing certain things out. We were gonna have some good weeks and some other weeks where we were gonna plateau, and then I had other weeks where actually, we had some setbacks, and, we worked through those.
I love that. Mel, did you know that many patients who come to us with problems with hyperacusis or tinnitus, they that their symptoms started around a time where there was a lot of stress. And actually this sort of pre-retirement or recent retirement phase is a very common situation. So, do you want to share with everyone here of how was that for you of going from a busy work life to slowing down? How did that go?
Yeah, that was a little crazy, but I had a few things that I think really put me on a tipping point. I was finishing off, like, 4 big sporting events. They were very loud, and I should have been more careful, and then I added 1 personal event where I was in a small venue with a very loud, music band. Even though I had had some protection, there was a while there in there for about 40 minutes where I didn't. So that along with the immense stress of handing over, a company that we had started and the team, to a new leader, making sure all that team is taken care of and all that subject matter expertise has been passed on was incredibly stressful. And I do agree with you that even during the 2 years of recovery, I would say stress has served two things. I think positive and negative. Stress isn't always a negative thing. While that was negative, and I had some, personal issues during 2 years that really affected me negatively, and I felt setbacks during that time, or I felt it in a more significant way. I also had some stressful times. I had my mother had a stroke and she also had a hip replacement. And I would say that those were turned around in a positive way. I had to go beyond my own issues. I had to leave hyperacusis on the table and go, you got to get in that hospital. You've got to take care of her. You've
Yeah.
got to help her through that hip surgery. And what I noticed clearly during that time when you're focused on someone else, you, y- it's like you move into a place where you forget about your own issues and you actually make progress in there. So I also want to say to people, not all stress is bad.
Absolutely. Well, let's hear where are you today? And then any final pieces of advice for those listening.
Yes. So just about a month ago, I went down to zero. I don't use the app anymore. And I think, probably for the last maybe, 60 days of 2024, I was, down to like number 3, number 2, number 1 from 15. My app had 15 levels.
And you're talking about
Eh
sound therapy levels, right?
Sound therapy levels, exactly. And, that was a bit of a crutch, right? I would rely on that. I think one of the things that I realized, is neuroplasticity and how important it was in my recovery. It took time for my those pathways, like, to be recreated. And, during that 2 years, I even had, another kind of episode with the, tensors, tympani muscle, and it was insane. It went on for 13 minutes. I'd never had that. I don't even know really what happened, but I recognize that, that may happen again in my life, and I just had to stay really calm and work through that. So, kind of back to your point, now I'm no longer using any sound therapy. My hearing aids are at the volume that they were when this happened to me. I'm I still will be I'll still pay a little bit more attention to certain sounds, depending on the day. Some days I might have a fuller feeling in one ear, a little bit of tinnitus, especially if I'm working, I'm on the phone, I'm under some stress. I still do some consulting. So, that kind of goes up and down. But overall, I'm in a really good place, and I guess, if I could share a few things that I feel, really helped me was, finding your happy place is important. No matter how bad things were, if I went out for a walk in the woods and in the forest, um, it was great. Always felt good. Those walks were such healing moments. If I went for a walk on the beach, they were really important to me. It's like being in nature brought me to a place where everything would just calm down back to your nervous system. And I could carry that through the week or when I needed to go back to that place. The other thing I feel was really important was having an A and a B plan. This was something Dr. Sarah really equipped me with. Facing things I really wanted to go to, but I knew maybe I might not be able to stay, or maybe I'm not I don't know how I'm gonna feel. So, like, for big Christmas activities that we did, we have family of 35. These are very loud people. Um, we made up plans where, I could get in and we could do certain things, and maybe I'd have to leave partway through, but I still got to experience part of it. Even teaching my own family, you have to be, kind of careful when you're around. I have a very loud husband, a very loud son, boisterous. So playing games, maybe I'd wear ear defenders, part of it. When it was my turn, I'd take them off. Maybe someone would be beside me, kind of coaching me a little bit, but never gave up. Like anything, you keep participating in your life in some way, and you will gain from that. I think some of those things were really important because you do have ups and downs through this.
Mel, you're showing that someone can be in a very tough place with sound sensitivity or tensor
Yeah.
tympani, and they can get healed. They can bring it to a point where they're essentially back to normal. and they're just managing their condition, just, keeping things, making sure they're not getting any worse or anything. You've really shown a recovery that we wanted to share. So thank you for sharing your story. And I know this will help many people. If you're here wanting to get in touch with Treble Health, you can find us at treblehealth.com, where we have various services and programs available for tinnitus, sound sensitivity, or tensor tympani. So thanks so
Yeah,
much, Mel.
you're
Appreciate it.
welcome. And Ben, while I know I'm not supposed to do this, I would like to just say that um, the approach that the audiologists take at Treble Health are really holistic, and I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have Dr. Sarah or Dr. Diana really helping me through some of those tougher times. And I just want to say that, that was a really unusual experience. It's scary for people. You really sometimes don't think you'll get out of it. But I can't thank Treble Health enough, especially as a Canadian, who went to the US for support. It was so important to me. So thank you and to your team.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mel. Appreciate that. All right, guys, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much. Hey, it's Dr. Ben Thompson with Treble Health. If you'd like to book a free consultation with a doctor from my team, all you have to do is click the link on the screen right there. Your brain health is important, your hearing is important, and tinnitus is treatable. So reach out to us right here to create a personalized plan for your treatment. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next video.